fuck is that guy?
Welcome in, everybody. Joe Quill's here with you. It's Tuesday night. Another edition of Joe Quill Show presented by absolutely nobody. Oh, well, technically Q&A Sports Zone, but coming up on the show tonight, I had another interesting experience with AI. Some of you already know this today, what I posted, and if not, well, you're going to find out. Also, I'm not streaming one place here. Hold on a second. For whatever reason, I wasn't making sure this turns on. There we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome all those on Facebook. Apparently, when I set this up, it didn't go to Facebook, but whatever. We're set now. So welcome in, everybody. Joe Quill's here with you. And like I was saying to the other four places I stream to, had another interesting experience with AI. That's why we're titled the way we are tonight, and I will get into that for you in a second. Also, we had A.J. Brown talking to the Boston media, or I should say the New England media, because, you know, Foxborough isn't really next to Boston. I mean, it is kind of, but not really. But got an interesting case here with quarterback Brendan Sorsby. And I have some additional questions as well about it. Also, we have the return of Small Dick Nick to Citizens Bank Park. And also, I'm going to try to keep an eye on everything here with the hockey game one of the Stanley Cup Final, Vegas and Carolina. And it is 2-1 after one. Carolina put two quick goals on the board. And then John Tortorella had to take a quick time out there because it's, whoa. I mean, this is a coach that's been in the NHL for what, 20, 30, 40 years. So I think he knows when he needs to cut the momentum in. Basically the same thing we saw. Now I don't know what happened in the first round, but in the second round, they went for the quick punch, the quick knockout punch in game one against the Flyers. They went with the quick punch in game one with Montreal, but Montreal answered back. They went with it again tonight against Vegas. They got two quick goals. First one, only like 30 seconds into the game. I didn't even get to look at the TV right beside me, and next thing you know, it's 1-0. I'm like, damn, that was quick. But they scored two quick goals. Vegas answered back here, so everything appears to be back to normal in terms of the game itself. So I'll try to keep an eye on things here. I also got the Phillies game on the iPad. Before we get to the AI story, I got to tell you, I was going to mention this last night. I purposely didn't tell Mike right away because I wanted to, because I'm the type of person that wants to get the reaction because he's good at reacting to things. So Sunday night, I was sitting on the couch. I was working on something or watching a game or whatever. I don't know, whatever I was doing. But I ended up having a little casualty here. So this is the old. Here's the old here's the old iPad. I mean, it's not that much of a bend, but it's enough of a bend. It's like shit. So I went out and purchased a new one today, just a Wi-Fi one because that's all I need. I did peek into getting an iPad for with cellular, but I'm like, nah, I don't really need it. So this thing is pretty much uncacheable or anything like that. So that's going to get wiped out and probably trash, but not worth saving. So that I wanted to get Mike's reaction on screen, but just like everything else, I forget. So so I'll keep an eye on the Phillies game here. I'll keep an eye on the hockey game as well, and we'll go from there. But um, so as you know, and I will say this, I will preface this as well, because of the fact that I know firsthand, whether you want to call it artificial intelligence or automation or whatever. Automation is a dangerous thing. It can very easily take jobs from us, whether you believe everything that the media says or not, or whatever you believe your employer says or what your union says or anything like that. But I can kind of vouch for that statement to a certain extent. But like, for example, AJ wanted me to make a Quill Picks winners thing so we can put them on the articles on QARacing.com. There you go. This one, which is your introductory screen on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, that was created. Then we have this one, where also eligible will be live at Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning. So today, I was looking ahead to Saturday, and I was working on an article, and I got way too many Word articles here. There we go. So as I'm sitting there, and I'm like, well, let's do something different on there because, we can, mix up the cards here, as AJ calls them. Like, this is a card, this is a card, this is a card. So I told AI today, and this was through Microsoft Copilot. And what I did was I created, or here it is. And I attached my default picture that I use. I said, create a picture of me in the rain holding an umbrella at Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes. This is part of Also Eligible, live every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on Q&A Racing and on twitch.tv/JoeQuills. Okay, so I could have been holding it with my right hand and just gone on with my day. But apparently, Microsoft Copilot must think that my love life is really fucking awesome. Because Microsoft Copilot thinks I'm married there if you see the ring there. Now, I'm going to read what I put on here. And I got to pull it up again. But then again, yeah, and I'll have a thought of this at first. So, your range shot is ready. No, that ain't it. So here's what I said. Once again, create a picture of me in the rain holding an umbrella at Saratoga for the Belmont Stakes. This is part of also eligible live every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific on Q&A Racing and on twitch.tv/JokeWills. No indication that I'm married. No indication that I'm single. No indication of anything. But apparently, Aaron Rodgers is not the only one who has a mysterious wife. Apparently, I'm married. I don't know who. I told somebody when I was showing them the picture, I said, hey, I must be married into the Mormon community. Because, they used to be polygamous. I married Rosie Palm and each of her 5 sisters, apparently. But seriously, of course, when I see something like that, I have to joke around with it. It's just me. And you have to understand my sense of humor. Because guess what? I ran with it. And I definitely was not taking it off. Because because I'm just like, well, I'm just joking around and blah, 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 and whatever. So, yeah, I'm going to joke around. I don't care. People that follow me on social media and those that follow me on here, you understand my sense of humor. Because guess what? It's all in good fun. So I played around with it a little bit. I didn't do anything with the picture, but the picture I ended up using on QARacing.com today was actually because I wanted to have a red and white umbrella, which didn't really work out too well, but it didn't come out like I wanted. But it had me holding the umbrella with my right hand. So obviously, if you saw that article with my ad card or whatever you want to call it, I call it wallpaper, but call it what you will. But I think that I thought it was funny. It's worth sharing with you guys. So, just thought that was a bit funny, and I'm just doing whatever, and next thing you know, I'm apparently married. But no, I'm not married. There's the left hand there. No ring on that finger. There you go. No ring. So, but it's and here's the thing. If I start joking around, I mean, it's just the way that I am. I am not going to complain, unless it's really something that totally gets me off the, off the tracks, But usually, But I'm going to joke around with you guys. So, um, but but that's just me in a nutshell. So, but that's what happened today because I had a couple different articles I was working on, and then on top of that, I'm kind of preparing because I showed Mike last night uh, stream because I don't want to share it till next week because I have two different variations of it, and you'll see why possibly next Tuesday because next week will be next week we're going to be looking at um, Belmont Park, not Belmont, Jesus Christ, Monmouth Park. So, and what I will tell you right now, I'm going to share this link here, and you guys can bookmark this so that and it's through the month of August. Whoops. That didn't go as planned. There we go. Now we got it. So the link is posted on the different platforms here. It's not on X because X is a funny thing, but so Q&A racing slash also dash eligible dash schedule. So that will be the schedule for the month for everything from now until the end of from the end of to the end of August. So once September comes around, once we get towards the middle of the summer, we'll get the what do you call it? The stake schedule will fill in for the rest of the year on my mains the source that I use, which is Daily Racing Form. So I can fill in the blanks here, even though we can actually I can actually piece some things together because I think I can piece through Pennsylvania Derby Day on September 19th. So, but anyways, Phillies are on the board. They continue their dominance of the um, the San Diego Padres, beating them tonight 3-2, as you can see right there. Especially if you're on my Twitch, twitch.tv/Joe Quills, because you'll get the updates of all the games. And oh, by the way, we have a developing situation in Carolina because the Vegas Golden Knights, Ivan Barbashev scored, and it's now 2-2. So we got a tie game down there in Raleigh in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. And just remember, in hockey, for whatever reason, it's Stanley Cup Final, Final, and in the NBA, it's the NBA Finals, Finals. So, but one guy who did not make it to the field tonight was at Citizens Bank Park was Nick Castellanos. And I'm trying to get a little bit of headway with this because, if you watch the when you've watched the Eagles, you know that Nick Foles is known as Big Dick Nick. And I think that was basically because of, I think it was Connor Barwin, because he said to somebody in the media that he said to somebody in the media, "Man, that's the biggest dick I've ever seen." Meaning down here, not, you know, being called a dick, but because I'm the biggest dick there is in that sense. But anyway, so I got so frustrated with Nick Castellanos over the last 3 years of his tenure in Philly and chasing every low and away slider with two strikes that I started calling him Small Dick Nick. And that is because he he said it, because he would always strike out in those big moments, and he ended up, you know might have cost the Phillies some games, but then he had a falling out with um Rob Thompson, and I think in a way Rob Thompson, I don't completely blame him for everything with you know everything that happened with the last couple of years. I think it's everybody involved. It's the players, it's the coaching, it's Dave Dombrowski. I mean, you can blame Preston Mattingly as well, but he's just sitting there just playing with his pencils and pens and laptop and iPad and whatever. Um, but you know, but it, but in order to at least try to save the season, you have to do something drastic to get some reaction to the team. Now, you could argue that the team would have righted themselves even with Rob Thompson because of the fact you ended up starting with a weaker portion of the schedule. So you could have argued that as well. But whatever you believe, you know, it is what it is. So, um, but a lot of what you saw, you know, you had to do something, and a lot of the Phillies fans wanted Rob Thompson gone, but when the Phillies were falling apart after the '09 World Series, I will tell you that Charlie Manuel deserved to be fired after that fiasco in Game 4 where he overshifted Jimmy Rollins, even though I didn't really get into it until 2010. But Charlie Manuel deserved to be fired for what he did in 2009. But a lot of these inbred Phillies fans, they will tell you, oh, Charlie Manuel is the best thing since sliced bread. If he didn't have Jimmy Williams, he would have been fired in 2009 because he still would not have had a World Series title. The Phillies would have been 1 for 142. Now, granted, between 1883 and 1903, there was no World Series, but there were some different championships that you had with different leagues and stuff like that. But you have a lot of these different things going on. And by the way, Vegas just took a 3-2 lead on Carolina. So I'm wearing my Vegas shirt here. Now, there you go. There's the sports bot. Now, I'm wearing my Vegas shirt tonight. But I said this to Mike last night. I might have said it to somebody else. I said, I'm rooting for Vegas. It has nothing to do with Carolina being the Flyers. but I just think Vegas is probably the greatest expansion franchise in the history of sports. But that's a topic for another day. Um, but you know, but Charlie Manuel should have been fired on the spot for 2009 for that extreme shift on Mark Teixeira, which led to um, Johnny Damon get a double steal on his own. But I just feel like, and this is a topic we can have another time as well, where Pat Gillick idiot-proofed the coaching staff by bringing in Jimmy Williams to be the bench coach. Because if it wasn't for him, the Phillies don't have a second World Series. But going back to Nick Castellanos, he did have his moments with the team. I'm not going to lie. He has had his moments. So you can say what you will. If there was a division series MVP that one year, it would have been him because he had 5 home runs against the Braves. The second time we faced the Braves, so it was 23. And then, so I just think, well, you're just too tough on him. Okay. And of course, even some people don't understand the reasoning behind the nickname as well. Because it's a play on words with Nick Foles. Because everybody called him Big Dick Nick. After, I believe it was Connor Barwin. Let everybody know. But I just think that too much, and even people, I've even had people tell me, well, why are you, how do you know that Nick Castellanos has a small dick? And it's kind of like going on X, like I did once or twice, and I used the Animal House quote a couple of times, or I paraphrased it. That when John Belushi goes on his rant, he says, "Was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor?" Well, I did that once, and people did not get the joke or did not get the reference. I got a couple of people that one time saying, wasn't the Japanese that bombed Pearl Harbor? And I'm like, have you seen Animal House? No. So, and that's the thing. I mean, I'm kind of like Fritzy from the Dan Patrick Show where he's stuck in the 80s. Me, I'm stuck with old movies and TV shows I quote shit from all the time where it's like, wait, you never heard of Animal House? You never heard of this? You never heard of that? All that shit. So, but that's just me. I'm going to joke around. I'm going to make bad references and stuff like that. It's like, but nobody's really actually even taken a chance to start that small dick Nick chant. But he did return tonight. He got from what I saw, he did get a cheer from the crowd because they, the one thing is when you have somebody who returns to your stadium after leaving, in most cases, AJ Brown, I don't know if that's going to happen, but the Eagles did have a thank you graphic to AJ Brown on X today and yesterday, and also on Instagram, I believe. But I think that you do have he did get cheered a little bit, but I still think you need to do it. So he did meet the media today, of course, because he's coming back to where he was in the playoffs for the last 4 years. So the Padres outfielder gave a shout out to stadium employees he befriended, sang hello to Luke from the gift shop, and recalled the joyous times from his 4 years of playing right field for the Phillies. His walk-off hit against the Mets in the 24 NLDS was a highlight. So was his game-ending catch when the Phillies clinched the 22 pennant. They gave the game ball to reliever Ranger Suarez. Well, technically Suarez was a starter, but he came in relief. So I guess, both arguments, both the writer and that. So he was released in February because, the thing is, when you got somebody who it's blatantly known throughout the sports world that he has, that he's going to get cut, why pay $20 million for a guy in a trade and assume his contract where you can pick him up off of free agency and you're only going to pay the major league minimum for him while the Phillies pay the remaining $19.2 million or whatever it is, whatever it figures out to be. So apparently he said today he wasn't much. So he was released ahead of the first full squad workout spring training. He wasn't much for looking back, but Castellanos said ahead of Tuesday's game, my phone was on. All they needed was a conversation like, hey, this is going to be your role. Apparently, they thought it was just best for the organization that my personality wasn't in the clubhouse. Now, he did have a strained relationship with the team last year when his behavior, even more than his sagging production, became too much for the organization. Now, he brought a Presidente beer into the dugout in last June after he was removed from a game, which he admitted in a 4-page handwritten letter he posted to social media after his release. But he also had the high of the first player to hit multiple home runs in consecutive postseason games. That's 2023 in Atlanta, like I was saying. So he said he appreciated playing close to his family, his wife in New Jersey, and how his son Liam became such a fixture, rooting on his dad and shagging balls in the outfield that he turned into a local celebrity. He joked he would tell Liam he needed to start walking around Citizens Bank concourse with a pen because fans often stopped him for photos and autographs. And Castellanos said he had a good 4 years here. Well, most of the time. But I think after a couple of months away and wearing the brown and yellow of San Diego, you're going to be, you got time to decompress with all that. But he wasn't in the lineup tonight. He went just 1 for 8 without an RBI or a run scored in 3 games last week at San Diego. He's only hitting 191 this year, 4 homers in 39 games. So, I don't know if it's because they're not playing him every day or whatever, but he offered little opinion as to how much he might be received by Phillies fans in his first at bat of the 3-game series, but he noted he has more fans rooting him than not. He said that anytime I run into anybody that's a Phillies fan, away from cameras, away from the field, I got nothing but a lot of love and positivity. I spoke my mind. I went about my business. I played every day. I rarely hit on the IL. I really wanted to win a ring. So, so that's fair, you know. But in terms of coming up small in the biggest moments, that's why I always say all the time, small dick Nick. So, um, but yeah, so that is the Nick Castellanos reunion in Philly. He did meet up with a couple of old teammates behind the batting cage and stuff like that before during batting practice today. So, but you know, but basically, you're not going to. You know, I think now that the first game is over, the media will just let him be, and he'll just go about his day and prep and all that stuff. So, but one guy who I'm not sure if he would get this sort of a welcome back on the jumbotron or wherever you want to call the video boards at the link is AJ Brown. As you know, he got traded yesterday. Eagles got a fifth next year and a first in 28. Now, I am going to preface this. This may be true. This may not be true. I really didn't look too much into it because I admit I looked at it this morning because it seems like over the last few months, I tend to wake up a couple of different times in the morning because I will go and Carolina has just scored to tie the game at 3. Um, I'll wake up 5:30, 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I'm too tired to look for my phone, which is on the floor or wherever. So, and as I said, tie game. Uh, so I end up, and I'm purposely going to say it because you can hear the Google Home behind me. Hey Google, what time is it?
It's 9:41 p.m.
Hopefully that picked up. So that's usually what I do when I wake up way too early. I ask what time it is because I don't feel like looking for my phone. I'm just like, it's 9:41 p.m. Back asleep for a couple more hours. So, but yeah, so I did see this morning. Now, there's two different things that came up. Now, one of them I think is more true than the other that I found, and there may be even more than that from what we've seen. So, one story I did see was that both AJ Brown and Hassan Riddick, and I'm prefacing this, I don't know how true it is. I didn't look too far into it because I saw it in passing this morning when I was waking up. So I saw that AJ Brown and Hassan Riddick were both banging the same chick. And apparently AJ Brown didn't know about it, or one of them didn't know about it from the other. So AJ Brown got pissed. And that might have something to do with Hassan Riddick leaving the Eagles. It may not. But whatever it was, but I will say this once again, I did not go too far into that. So I'm prefacing it as much as possible because of the fact that, you know, I'm only prefacing it because, you know, the last thing I want to do is get us into trouble because I'm spreading a false story. So that's why I'm prefacing it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. So I think that's what you want to see. You want to see um, that, and forgive me, I'm just making sure. Okay, yeah, I did get it. Okay. So the last thing you want is some drama queen bullshit off the field. Now, this second one, I think is more substantiated. But once again, I didn't do too much work into looking into this, um, but this will probably make a little bit more sense. But it may be something that um, maybe um, last year's offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo actually um, actually greased the situation. But apparently there was a little bit of a falling out between Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. And maybe it was because of the not getting the ball 10, 15, 20 times a game, like he thinks he should get the ball 10, 15, 20 times a game. So that may have been the case. It may not be the case. We don't know. But whatever it is, you know, I think that has something to do with it, but we don't know. And I think even with how AJ reacted to the media, I don't think he's really going to divulge. I think that he's going to just leave things the way they are and go from there. So I just think that, you know, it's not ideal, but I think that you um, but I think you do whatever you can to keep everything from being a major shit show. So it just seems like it wasn't as bad as 3 years ago where everything went to shit, but it was a lot of things that really went to hell in a handbasket that year 3 years ago. But I think that you do have everything going on. So, but I think that it wouldn't be surprised if either of those stories I found, which may be true, may not be true, which I'm trying to tread lightly on so that I don't get myself into trouble or anybody else. But I just get that feeling that it wouldn't surprise me if it's true or not. So, um, But it kind of makes sense that AJ Brown wanted to go to Foxborough. Mike Vrabel is the head coach there. Okay. Um, what's her face? Diana Racine was spreading those stories like you wouldn't believe, whether you believe it's true or not. Um, but it is what it is. So I just think that he wanted to go to New England because that's the team he grew up rooting for. There's a lot of stuff in this that proves his point that he wanted to be in New England. So he's friends with Mike Vrabel. Okay. He grew up a Patriots fan. Okay. So some of it makes sense. So it isn't just I just want to go to I want to go to New England. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. And I think also the fact that um, just the fact that you have a um, you have a um, you have a friend who's the head coach, someone you trust, and all that. You get to live your fantasy of playing for your favorite team. Okay, but part of it has to do with the fact that maybe this stuff was also going on. Maybe it was because he was trying to work the trade. Maybe it was just he just wasn't 100% happy here. Like maybe he was 85% happy, 69% happy. Nice. But so so he summed up his first day with the Patriots by saying, obviously, I know this ain't heaven, but it's close to it. Well, you're not in Iowa either. But so he took part in his first practice today with the team he dreamed of playing for as a youngster. Okay. And of course, the Patriots were this generation's Dallas Cowboys. So he said shortly after the practice, I was just talking to my mom and saying I'm still in awe. Walking up that hill with the uniform, I was like, man, this is real. I caught myself at one point in practice. I wasn't paying attention because I was like, dang, just trying to take it all in as much as I can. So, and it's pretty hard to I mean, I don't think it's that common that you ended up playing for the team that you root for as a kid. So that is all everything that. So um and also he also deflected questions about his about how his time ended with the Eagles. And here's the thing. Who knows what happens? He may come back here in 2 years and be a wide receiver here again. Probably not, but it's why you don't completely burn a bridge. Because let's look at OBJ. He's back with the Giants after however many years. But that's because you had a couple of new coaches, and now you have John Harbaugh there, and he's familiar with OBJ, and he can do certain things with him, or at least he thinks he can. So, so he said, I won't get into details about it, but I'm excited for the opportunity. I'm here now. None of that stuff matters. What's done is done. I'm here. moving forward. So, maybe it gets out eventually, but I don't think you're going to get anything first day, second day, third day. I think that when the guard is down, you may get some details from him. Or maybe if it's Eagles and Patriots in the Super Bowl again, maybe. But they also asked him about his knee. He said, no injury, nothing to worry about. I'm ready to go. So I don't know if there was something with his knee. But, so he shared that he dreamed of being selected by the Patriots in the first round of the 2019 draft and was crushed when the team selected Arizona State wide receiver N'Keal Harry at pick number 32. He told reporters he left his draft party and sat dejected in the closet of his bedroom because he wanted to play with quarterback Tom Brady. Yeah, if you're a fan of that team and you still have the star quarterback there, yeah, I would be dejected too. So he was also questioned why he elected not to wear jersey number 11, which was available in New England and what he wore with the Titans and Eagles. But he's going to wear number 1 there. Maybe it's because of his ego? No. He said, Julian Edelman gave me the grace to wear number 11, but I got too much respect and love for him. I'm going to let that be and create my own legacy here. I'm just getting back to my roots. I will be number 1 all the way until I get up to the league. Until I got up to the league. So in college, he also wore number 1. So he's going to wear number 1 in New England. So, and that's the thing. And I guess this is something that, because he's part of the older portion of this generation of football players where he doesn't necessarily, I think he understands the history of the sport and certain numbers are retired for a reason, unlike a couple of guys on the New York Giants, for example, that said, oh, I want this number 1. Or the guy from Penn State, he wanted to wear Lawrence Taylor's 56. Really? But, I just think that some people just don't realize that a number is retired for a reason. Believe it or not, I salute A.J. Brown for the whole legacy thing, start your own legacy, not, wearing number 1 as opposed to 11, because, 11 is a sacred number there because of Julian Edelman. So they asked him as well how much he feels he has left in the tank, and he said, you'll see, before walking off. Now, I don't know what that has to do with anything. I don't know if somebody was spreading rumors about his demise. I think also, but actually wide receiver is one of those positions where you can have a long career in the league as long as you don't take insane amount of hits to the head or whatever. But I think we're going to see real fast if the issue was Jalen Hurts related, Kevin Patullo related, whatever, or is it A.J. Brown starting to regress a little bit in his career? Because that could be the case too. So many different reasons why he did not why he was not, why the Eagles decide, yeah, we're going to trade him. Now, even though this was something that had been brewing for over a year because Diane Rossini, you know, um, I just think that a lot of what a lot of all the rumors, because it just seemed like Diana Rossini was the only one who went with the insider information, while Mike Vrabel was inside her. Uh, but I just think that, you know, I said it last year. I think Devontae Smith surpassed AJ Brown as a number one. So say what you will about that, but it is what it is. But I just think that you may start seeing a regression in AJ Brown, or we may see him come back to where he was with the Eagles. But I will also say, we'll also see how good Drake May really is, because now he did have a shoulder injury going into that Super Bowl. So say what you will, but I just think that when you look at everything, I just think that a lot of what you're seeing, a lot of what you saw in New England, you know, maybe it was smoke and mirrors because they had such a weak schedule. Maybe it was because, maybe he did start to come of age. But he's not going to get a break in those first 4 weeks this year, because they got to go to Seattle open a year. They got to play Pittsburgh. They got to play Jacksonville. They got to play somebody else. So they're not going to have an easy start. And like me and Mike said last night, they're probably not going 4-0. I wouldn't be surprised if they start off 0-4. But, probably 2-2, probably 1-3, maybe 3-1. But, we'll see how good Drake May is, because he may end up being one of the worst quarterbacks that played in a Super Bowl in recent years, or period, for that matter. Or it may be that there was something substantial about that news that he had a bum shoulder going into the Super Bowl. But whatever you believe with that, but even so, I just think that we're going to see if Drake May goes further or he regresses. But even with that first game, because remember, he's going to be playing in Seattle for opening night. And it's one of the two loudest stadiums in the NFL, if you include Kansas City. And of course, there's other stadiums that can try to rival a little bit, but they don't. But so you do have the possibility that he ends up looking like total shit in Seattle, and then, it's the same Drake May. I wouldn't judge him off of one game, even if Seattle really manhandles him again, because, things happen, And this year's a new year on top of it. So, but I will say this. I think that I really think that what you see here is you're seeing Drake May improve, but I think that it was more his defense getting in there. it might have been a Trent Dilfer type situation, except Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl, because I really think if Bo Nix does not get hurt, I think it's Seattle and Denver in the Super Bowl. Because remember, Bo Nix got hurt on a freak play where, some people say it's, he scrambled out with 4 minutes to go, but most people are saying it was the kneel down play because, let me run the clock down a little bit, down, and he got popped. And I noticed that when he got popped, I was like, oh, that didn't look good. Now, granted, I'm saying that to myself, but but little did we know until like an hour after the game that, oh, by the way, Drew Nix is out for the season because he has a broken ankle. So I just think that you could be seeing some things here where maybe it helps him, maybe it doesn't. But we'll see how much he behaves up there. I mean, I'm sure he'll behave for Mike Vrabel because that's his buddy. But if things don't go right in New England, is he going to throw Drake May under the bus too? Very possible. So, but part of the reason why they didn't make the trade until June 1st yesterday is because the salary cap hit, it becomes a 2-year hit as opposed to a 1-year hit. So, but we'll see what happens. And I don't think the Eagles play. I think the Eagles play New England next year. So we'll see what happens with that. But um, I just think that he was a little too. I think that he's just being a good little boy right now. It's like I got impressed by new teammates. And then probably by November he'll probably be throwing Drake May under the bus. But that's just me. But we'll see. Now, that reminds me, I did share an article on my Facebook tonight that I'm probably going to use on Thursday because I didn't get a chance to review it. Um, Thursday is guaranteed to be a stupid shit that I saw story. Um, if it's just as crazy, I think it's going to be. So, but, and the reason why I say that is because it's a gambling story. But one thing I did see tonight, and this is a story that's been brewing for a couple of weeks. So there's a quarterback that transferred a couple of times, went into the transfer portal a couple of times. His name is Brendan Sorsby. So he ended up in a rehab over the last couple of weeks because he has a gambling addiction. So he's trying to get an injunction right now to play for Texas Tech this year because the NCAA wants to ban him because he bet on college sports and even with college football. So, and we can get into some of the NCAA bylaws when it comes to gambling when we get to that point. But so he came up today in Brown's camp because there is a supplemental draft which is on June 22nd, and The reason why that they have a supplemental draft is exactly for a situation like Brendan Sorsby, who may not be able to play in the NCAA for gambling on football. Now, what's interesting is how does the NFL handle him as well? But we'll worry about that towards the end of the story here. But Browns coach Todd Monken said it would be a slippery slope to draft the quarterback in the supplemental draft if he is ineligible to play college football because of gambling. Now, we'll get to what he did and what was believed he did or whatever. We'll get into that in a second. But so Sorsby's attorneys are seeking a temporary injunction permitting him to play in 2026 after the NCAA ruled him ineligible and denied his request for reinstatement after he placed thousands of bets on college and pro sports, including on his own team during his career. Now, let's just look at the Pete Rose portion, because that's probably the most parallel case that we have to this in any sport, off the top of my head. Now, people will say, well, he only bet on his own team according to the records because, he had the tax evasion case and that came up and blah, blah, blah. But my point is always going to be this. When you look at this, when you look at Pete Rose, sometimes you can argue if he's making a pitching change, is he making a pitching change because the situation calls for it in terms of the gameplay, or is he making that pitching change because he's trying to protect his bet? Also, if he's not betting on his team, is that a tell that he thinks his team's going to lose as well? I mean, there's so many different angles you can go with the fact that he's betting, and I think that even if you bet on baseball like Rose did as a manager, well, did that, is the move that he's making for the integrity of the game or not? Or is he protecting his bet? That's the reason why. And, a lot of what I'll say is, even though we can't really prove it, but we can probably guess it did happen, he probably bet as a player too. So, but, once again, I'm going to preface, we don't know, but, but Pete Rose is dead. So, but in Sorsby's case, we're seeing different things here that really, there's reasons why these red flags were flown. So, so some of the things that Sorsby did. Now, so the NCAA said it would be forced to become the first major American sports league to allow an athlete to bet on their own games and continue to compete if a district court were to grant Sorsby an injunction. But they laid out the opposition to Sorsby's request in a legal brief filed late Friday in Lubbock, Texas District Court. And they revealed about law enforcement's involvement in the Argent case and the scope of the invalid quarterback's betting. Now, the NCAA also pushed back on Texas Tech's claim that it intentionally delayed the investigation and had an incentive to Sorsby stint in a gambling rehab. Now, the fact that he's in rehab is one thing, but I think it's sometimes you just wonder, is this just some ploy as well? But because it just seems like strictly coincidence. But so Sorsby was diagnosed with gambling and anxiety disorders during a 35-day inpatient stay at a gambling rehab center in Arizona, according to his attorneys. He is alleged to have placed thousands of bets, during his college career at Indiana, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech. Now, Texas, I don't think that they have sportsbook gambling there. I don't think. Because I remember Mattress Mac, he would have to go into Louisiana to make his wagers when he would bet on his Houston Astros or whatever. So Sorsby's attorney, Scott Thompson, wrote in a letter to the NCAA that was included in court documents that Brendan has a mental health condition that predisposed him to compulsively use predatory and addictive online gaming apps. Okay, but the one thing is, and here's another thing, and this is something that each state does, where they say gambling problem, dial 1-800-GAMBLER, because they have to have something like that in there because we gotta make it look like we care. But so now the NCAA stated Sorsby should be commended for seeking treatment and is free to continue his playing career elsewhere. So basically, he cannot do it in the NCAA, according to what the NCAA ruled and the briefs that they've submitted as well. So he was a top target in the transfer portal, and considered an NFL prospect who could opt to enter the supplemental draft. But the NCAA wrote, the NCAA bylaws are clear that his college football career has come to an end. And just like anything else, I mention all the time, codes of conduct, however your business, class of words as, whatever legal mumbo jumbo they use for it, you agree to what the bylaws are, what we expect of you, things like that. And what the NCAA said was, you can't do all these things. So, as a scout team and backup quarterback, Sorsby placed at least 2,900 bets totaling more than $30,000 from June 2022 through December 2023. Now, in my case, when you look at me, and I'm always talking gambling, or so it seems, I will say this. I talk a good game, but my wagers are low because I like to make sure I have my bills paid and all that other stuff, because you realize that, hey, maybe there's more important things than gambling. And I talk a good game, but I'm not the type of person that's going to bet a big hunk of money. Like I said last night when Mike was here. How often do I bet $20 to win on a horse? Very rarely. But when it comes to my articles, Quills Picks Winners, it's all because of how easy the math is and doing plus and minus and all that other stuff. That's all it's for. So, and Vegas scores again. They're up 4-3. I was looking at the TV just as they scored. But the thing is, when it comes to gambling, whether you're using FanDuel, DraftKings, Bet365, Caesars, you name the app, there is a regulatory commission behind the scenes. There's a reason why you have to download whatever additional thing so that it can track your wagers and track your trends and stuff like that. Because if there's something funny going on, they're going to report it right away to the league, the teams, whatever. There's a reason for that. And in the case of Brendan Sorsby, it's raising a red flag because he's a college athlete. And he may even have been not of age in June of 2022. He might have. I don't know how old he is. I'm not going to look it up, but maybe he was of age. Maybe he wasn't. But so, according to the documents, his bets included 40 on games involving the Hoosiers, but none on games in which he was involved or had a legitimate chance of playing. So then you start getting into that Pete Rose thing. He's betting on his team, but in Pete Rose's case, they those moves, but he didn't bet anything like under 250 yards passing, for example. He didn't do anything like that. But but he also placed parlay bets involving Indiana basketball games that included wagers in favor of players on the opposing team. Now, he doesn't play basketball, but you can say what you will about that as well. So, now it's important to know that student athletes are prohibited from betting on any NCAA sanctioned event, sanctioned sport, college or professional, and face permanent loss of eligibility if found to have wagered on games involving their own team or another team in a different sport at their school. So, from how I'm reading that, he already violated by gambling while at Indiana. He bet on his team, and then he bet against his school in another sport. So it's pretty much cut and dry what the NCAA did. Now, I don't know what leg he has to stand on other than, hey, I went to rehab. That doesn't help you with what you did. I mean, it may help you with getting into the NFL, but the NCAA did not find evidence yet to manipulate his performance or inside information was used to place any of those bets. So we don't see that. But the attorneys have asked the NCAA to treat his violations of the gambling policy as a mental health condition. Now, the only thing I would say is, my personal opinion, was he covered on the plan? Because if he was, whether it doesn't matter if you're paying attention or not. You like, for example, at the job that I had, do you remember this coverage? No. Well, that's funny because on such and such a date, we covered you on it. Well, I could argue, well, that's putting a false record in my report, which I can go after. Not necessarily as a grievance, because you'll just kick the can down the road and say, I didn't do it. But, you could, if I'm there and I was doing that, then, if I was actually in the room and I'm not paying attention, that's on me for not paying attention. But if I can prove that I'm not in the room, like I proved, but I will say that I wasn't trained properly by a god awful union president, that I can present my own grievances. I was never trained well in the early years. And especially when you had a racist union steward. I'll say it. She didn't like me. I don't give a fuck. She ain't in this city anymore. She's nowhere near this area. I was ignorant as hell in the process. But I probably could have won that, because it's cut and dry. My case that I had with one of the managers, who probably, if I really did, I could have told each and every person in the office that had a contact with this one manager, check your records, because he fakes observations. He fakes this, he fakes that. And the one time, and this is how pathetic this loser steward was. How can a manager do an observation on you when you're on jury duty? And I'm not doing jury duty when I was in Delaware County. I'm doing jury duty in my hometown and the city that I still live in to this day, Philadelphia, PA. Also, you also have to realize that in order to get up to the courtrooms, at least from when I used to have jury duty, you have to go through security just to get to the elevator so you can go up to the correct floor to go to the jury room. So it's not an easy thing to get up there into. And I think I would see him in a courtroom, because it was the one where I actually I was actually chosen to be on a trial. I think I'd be able to notice, like, the first couple of days of the trial, that some guy that sticks out like a sore thumb because he's 6'4" and a cracker, just like me. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't like the term cracker. I prefer the term saltine American. And, I don't have any laughing sound drop for that, but I prefer the term saltine American. So just to let you know. But I will say this. As long as he had, and even with this is a little bit different because this isn't actually a work situation. This is, but I don't know. Do they have something where they put in records covered so and so on the gambling protocols of the NCAA? Probably. I don't know. And if there isn't, that'd probably be something that could go after, but it doesn't look like they are. But um, so anyway, his attorney says the high volume of Brendan's gambling was a direct result of his mental health disorder and anxiety condition as manifested in compulsive gambling. I have anxiety. I want to call bullshit on this. But anxiety does not get me to start gambling. Anxiety makes me curl up and be a loner. It makes me want to do nothing. When my anxiety really starts getting going from time to time, I know what I have to do to get myself back to normal. And trust me, it's not gambling. Because my mind is all over the place. The last thing I want to do is gamble, but different strokes for different folks. You can argue that as well. But I do think as well, I think if you have anxiety like I do, I think having it as long as since I've been diagnosed. I was diagnosed, about 8, 9 years ago? 7, 8, whatever it was. I saw the discharge papers a couple of weeks ago when I was cleaning out one of the drawers. I think, now I will say in his case, he was just diagnosed a little while ago. So, everybody has their own way of handling anxiety. In my case, it's listening to music, listening to podcasts, something that takes me into what Happy Gilmore would call his happy place. But you get the idea. So you have to do what you can to release that tension or whatever you want to call it. In my case, it's listening to music, it's listening to podcasts. Like when I was at work, I said, listen, if I have my earphones on, you can still come up to me when I'm on break. I'm just doing this because it's a way for me to combat any anxious moments that I have. So that is something that I will say. So, but that's the case with that. So the NCAA said it became aware of Sorsby's gambling on March 11th after receiving information from an online sports book that it had been notified by law enforcement. So they informed Texas Tech of the investigation April 14th and asked for phone and betting records to interview Sorsby to determine the full scope of the sports betting activity during his time as a student athlete, including any integrity concerns. But attorneys for the NCAA said, contrary to plaintiff's suggestions, however, the NCAA did not demand that he interrupt his residential treatment plan he began weeks earlier. Instead, enforcement staff made clear that interviewing during his residential treatment is not a condition of his responsibility to cooperate. Instead, and the plaintiff's health and treatment should be prioritized before any engagement with enforcement staff. So now Cincinnati received an alert of Sorsby's activity of daily fantasy site Prize Picks on August 19, 2024. He spoke with the school's compliance team about the matter and received sports wagering education. Aha. So the one thing is, even if he's doing what he's doing, he's got that on his record that we did talk to him about sports wagering. The university said it had not received more than one alert, so none alerts were triggered by impermissible betting. So this may be where he gets himself into more trouble. Now, Cincinnati, Ohio is definitely a state where you can sportsbook wager. Court filings show that Sorsby placed at least 165 bets totaling at least $38,000 while at Cincinnati, and transferred more than $60,000 to a friend to deposit in a sportsbook account that they shared. Red flags, because he's trying to work his way around the rules, so he knows what's going on. So he paid attention in these gambling education sessions. So, but going back to what the Browns were saying here, so Monken said, the Browns coach, I don't think we're in a position to want to go down that road. That's my opinion. That's not general manager Andrew Berry's. I like the quarterbacks we have. I think that's a slippery slope when you go down that, irrespective of talent, right? In terms of the situation he's put himself in, we all know what it is. He put himself in that situation. And we've seen in other sports with other players that have been banned for life from playing in professional sports. But from my end of it, kind of a tough angle to go down that road to think that's going to be your franchise quarterback if he's ever even eligible to play in the NFL. Bingo. That's the question that I have, because if he gets banned by the NCAA and they have this proof, could the NFL ban him, or at least whatever, because he's bet on the sport? And they have the burden of proof. But be interesting to see if he does do anything that leads to that. But I personally would not. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole, but it'd be interesting because now you're gonna. So let's say the injunction fails and he's banned from the NCAA. He's got two options: NAIA, which ain't happening, or he goes pro. But they did say here that, and by the way, Carolina tied the game at 4. So the one thing is they want the injunction to be decided by the 15th because the supplemental draft is on the 22nd. So, but it'd be interesting to see here because there's so many different tentacles with this that you can go in a million different directions with this. So I just want to show you one thing here before we close up shop here. Because it is Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. I want to mention the historic nature of what the Carolina Hurricanes have done. And I think this, let me just double check because I think I've done everything I planned for tonight. AI, Nick Castellanos, AJ Brown, Brendan Sorsby. I'm giving you updates on the game. So yeah, I've covered everything I wanted to cover tonight. So just to leave you with a little bit of a sorbet here, especially if you're a Carolina Hurricanes fan, or you consider this sorbet no matter what side of the fence you're on for rooting the winner of the game here tonight and the series as well. So this is from Bleacher Report Open Ice, BR_Open Ice on Instagram. So the Hurricanes are the first team to ever go 12-1 before the Cup Final. We knew that before. The 1988 Oilers hold the best modern playoff record at 16-2. Let me just confirm that. Okay, yeah, because the reason why I say that is because the NHL has done best of 7 in the first round for 35 years at least. So that's why I was like, let me double check this, but just now. So the 88 Oilers hold a modern playoff record at 16-2. And I think what they mean by modern record is 4 rounds, having to win 16 games to win the championship. So that is what you see there. 4 teams have since 1988 have gone 16-4. Colorado in 22, the Kings in 12, 1997 Detroit Red Wings, 95 Devils, and 93 Montreal. Montreal, what was impressive was 10 of those wins were overtime. But that gives you an idea of the scope of what Carolina has done this year, that they have such a dominating record here so far this year. So I'll leave you with that. So a little sorbet for you guys after all the gambling stuff. And of course, if you have a gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. But I do want to let you know we do here at Q&A Sports Zone, Q&A Racing, we do bet responsibly. 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. But we will be talking Belmont Stakes this weekend, and it will be Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Twitch.tv/Joe Quills, where I'm on right now on my Twitch. Also on all the Q&A Racing, Q&A Sports Zone, all those platforms as well. So that is it for this show. And I do appreciate each and every one of you for watching. Let's do it live again Thursday night, 10 p.m. Eastern. 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm off tomorrow because tomorrow is the start of the Penny Pack Summer Concert Series. And and here's the thing. All I know is I'm going to be going most of the summer. But next week, tomorrow is the launch, and they are a tribute band. They do tributes to Styx and to Boston. So one half will be Styx, one half will be Boston. So just to let you know what's going on with that. So that's at Constadters, which is up on Frankfurt and Academy in Northeast Philly. So, and I will be there relaxing after whatever I get done tomorrow. So, and also Saratoga will be the Quills Picks Winners articles for the next 4 or 5 days, as it is the Belmont Stakes Festival up there this week. So check out QARacing.com as well. So that's it for now. And I do appreciate each and every one of you. So let's do it live Thursday night at 9 o'clock. And if you're unable to make it at 9 o'clock, join me at 10 a.m. on Saturday where we will talk Belmont Stakes at Saratoga. So that's it for now.